Thanks for joining the Joss and Crowd podcast, where we talk about photography, business, life, and a little bit more. Hello, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you, Jocelyn? Thank you so much
I'm,
for having me.
yeah, absolutely. Today we have Lindsey on our podcast. Go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. So, hello, I am Lindsey Dollinger. Full time, I am a high school Spanish teacher. Still, I guess I'm putting a little asterisk there. Still, but I am a business coach for women who need a little bit of assistance with productivity tips, strategy, mindset around building their business while they're also working full time, because that is what I have done as well. I'm also a podcaster. So we were just talking before we hopped on here about all things podcast. So I'm a podcaster too. I am a Disney lover. I am a dog mama, and I'm here in Ohio where it is already dark and it's not even 5:30 when we
I
are
know, I
recording.
hate the cold weather.
I know. So one day I will move to sunny Florida. It's on my list. But yeah, I have lived in the same area in the country in Ohio my entire life. And I've been teaching for 14 years, like I said, Spanish teacher, although I learned Spanish in high school, studied abroad in college, and really started my business in 2016 after my mom passed away from a journey with breast cancer. I guess it's not really a journey. What's the correct word for that? A battle, I guess. With breast cancer. She was diagnosed when I was 10, and then she passed away when I was 27. And that was really hard because my family is really close, and really the majority of my life that I remember, she had that, and it was always something, but she always overcame it. And so when the end finally came for her, it was a huge, almost like shock for my family and I, even though we should have known it was coming. And like I said, we were really close. So that entire year afterward, I was just kind of like looking for something. I'm like, I need something else because, I found some fulfillment in my day job, and I still do. That's why I'm still there. I like it. I love teaching and I love the kids. But I'm like, I just needed something more to kind of like pull me out of honestly what was my first time ever of really feeling what I'm pretty sure was depression. And so I joined a network marketing company, which I know sounds really taboo. And there's a lot of, stigma around network marketing. And that's almost why I didn't join it, but I ended up joining it. It was a health and fitness company. And I found personal development for the first time. I found, a community of women, this whole business world. My eyes were really open to it because I had no idea what it was. And honestly, my business has just kind of naturally pivoted from there to what it is now, because I decided I loved it. I loved helping women, build a social media presence, find ways to manage their time wisely. And I figured out all of these strategies myself as I was doing them while still working full time, was doing really well with it. And then people just started naturally asking, like, okay, how are you building this business while you're also teaching, while you're also traveling, while you're doing all these things? And so that's kind of where I am now. It's just really like everything has been a really natural progression that started with that decision to join network marketing in 2016 to where I'm at right now.
That's incredible. First, I want to say I'm sorry about the loss of your mother. I'm sure that was very difficult.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, with community, I think people don't realize that they can have a community around them. And I think a lot of people like that marketing because there is community and they can do something with help of others. I've been talking to a few people lately, and there was a quote that somebody put on Facebook at the beginning of the year. It was like, you can't win alone. And all year I've like kept that in the back of my mind. And I'm just now getting to a point, like I've been in business, I've been a photographer and graphic designer 22 years, and like doing everything on my own is getting tiring. And like being a business owner for over a decade now, and like doing all of the things on our own is not necessarily productive. And life goes by, like, especially from the pandemic, life goes by so quickly and things change so much. To have that community is really important, to know that you aren't alone and that you have people that can help you.
Yeah.
So I do think that you're right. Like, I do think there's a whole taboo around things, but at the same time, like you can't do everything by ourselves. Like
Right.
we're not even meant to.
No. And I think for me, that was really hard at first because I'm like, okay, I have to put on these blinders because I had people who were really close to me, some close friends and family members who truthfully really judged me for my decision to be a network marketer. Which was so ironic because I never once asked them to support me. You know, I never asked, spammed them, did any of that. But it's just because of that stigma, I think, around the industry. So I had to grow some really thick skin. And I think because of that, that I almost fell into that community even harder because I'm like, okay, I can be with these people who are being negative or you know, pulling me down, or there's this family almost that I found online who is super supportive, and they're reading the personal development books and they're hopping on these Zoom calls and they're doing these things and we're cheering each other on. Like, okay, which one am I going to be more drawn to? Right. And overall, I look at myself from before I started in network marketing and in the business realm to where I am now. I feel like I'm so much more of a positive person because I've just learned so many of those strategies. Or you know, we learn in our mentorship groups, we learn in all these different opportunities in networking that business has provided us, whether it's what someone else deems, you know, you should be doing, quote unquote, or not, like being okay with that and being secure. And this is really what fills me up and what I really want to do, I think was also a really important piece of the puzzle when I was figuring out my community, because it was a hard blow when you have to, you know, kind of decide that some of the friends who you have been with for, you know, a really long time with your friendships aren't going after the same goals as you are in your life. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm wording that right, but
You are for sure. When I went full time with my business, all the people that I had in my life are pretty much gone. I think
yeah.
there's maybe one or two left.
Yep.
And it was so weird because I was bettering myself. Like I was doing things to make myself better and they didn't like it. And I'm like, how do you not want to support that? Like, but there was a quote and I can't remember it, but it reminded me of it when you said that is essentially people don't see past what they're capable of, like the limitations they put on them. Like they can't see themselves doing that. So why would you be able to do that? And I feel like that is one of the big whole things of why people gravitate to other entrepreneurs, because we get it. Like we know that dark tunnel that we've entered in, and you know that there's a little spark of light, and you're kind of looking back like, you gonna come with me? And they're like, nope, I'm not. You go right on into that dark tunnel. And I think Roger Rabbit, if anybody's ever seen the movie Roger Rabbit, it's like that tunnel. It's like into the Cartoonville. This is like, there's a whole other world. Yeah, there's a whole other world. And like, I feel like I know if people are listening that aren't entrepreneurs, I don't think that like it's a bad thing, but the world of being an entrepreneur is such a good shift in your mind. Like it's bettering yourself, it's bettering your health, it's bettering the people around you. And it's more fulfilling that way. I feel like instead of just getting up and going to an office job every day or a restaurant. Like I was a manager in a restaurant when I went full time. I called in and quit on a Saturday. And let me tell you, the day I called in and quit, I was like, one, exhausted, but I slept and I cried because I was like, I can't believe I did that to a business on a Saturday when it's so busy. And now, like, obviously, I want to be nice to people, but I can't believe I let them treat me so bad for so long. Like, looking back, I should have quit long before that I got to that point. And I don't think we realize that until we're on the other side, and having that community to support and cheer you on is way better.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple friends who, and they're like my diehard, and they weren't even the people who I would have guessed were my diehard people, but they're not entrepreneurs, but they'll support me no matter what. And it's so funny because I refer to them as my dirt people with my clients, because I'm like, find your dirt person. This is the person who will support you if you were selling dirt on the side of the road. They'll be like, high five, girl. Yes. Ask $10.
Love that.
Yeah. Which is so funny when I first say dirt people think I'm going to like say something else with it. that I'm like, I have those people who are like my dirt people, and then the people who I thought were my dirt people who ended up not being. And it was so hurtful. But going through that, like you said, like now I see other people who are starting down that path too. And I'm like, nope, just keep going. Like, I know that pain, I know that hurt. It's so worth it. Your people are going to find you, and you'll find your right people. You'll find your communities that where you really fit in and you really feel aligned, and you'll know it when it happens. And until you get there, like it's that trial and error process that makes it so much better when you do get there. Oops, there.
So do you feel like you work with other business owners, right? Like that's your,
Yeah.
do you feel like you see them transform when they do that? Like, do you just see the process of it, or do you see them struggle first?
Both.
Yeah.
And I see so much of myself in that process too, because you want those people so badly to give you that support that you feel like you would give them. But one of the things that I have learned very much in the business side of things that has transferred in my real life is that just because I have expectations for how I would treat other people, and I kind of expect other people to treat me the same way, their expectations might be different. Like we're going to see things a little bit differently. And it's almost made me more like, I'm trying to think of what the right word is, like more accepting of that, and more like, okay, I realize like this might be your cap of what you can give me with support, and I get to be okay with that or not okay with that. It's almost into that talk almost about boundaries. And I had to set those for some people. Like I knew that when I went to a certain friend's house, for example, like she was going to say something nasty about my business. And if I was already feeling down about my business that day, then I'm not going to go hang out with her. Like, I just know that that's not a good place for me to be. I'm going to dive into, like you said, a personal development book or my communities that I know that are already going to support me, and just not put myself in those situations. And so, yeah, when I'm working with my clients, I can see that process, or I can really watch them struggle. And a lot of that, though, I feel like we just kind of have to experience for ourselves, because we're all going to go through that in a different sort of way. And some people definitely don't have it as bad, I don't think. Some people have family members and their best friend is their dirt person. But for me, it just didn't end up being that way. And so, that transition into finding my right community took a while, but I'm really glad that it ended up happening, because I look back, like I said, in that me from 7 years ago, and it's a completely different person.
Yeah, we're always evolving. I feel like the more we get into the thick of entrepreneurship, we keep evolving. I have people in my life that, like you said, you don't go around them. Like, I definitely feel there are bubble bursters
Yeah.
that are like supportive for other things, but if you just tell them, they're going to burst your bubble, and you're like, why did I tell them that? And so you just stop telling them, because they're just not going to be that person to cheer you on,
Right.
or the naysayers. And I think a lot of times people feel like you have to get rid of all those people in your life. You just have to learn how to communicate or talk to them, where some people do have to go. Like, not everybody stays in your life forever. But I definitely have people that I am like, oh no, they'll be excited. I'm going to text her. She's going to be super excited. And that was something I had to figure out. I talk about it in, I think, the first chapter of my book, where I felt like I was playing offense, defense, and cheerleader of my own football game. And it doesn't have to be that way. And there are people that will support you. And
Well, and I love how you said that you don't necessarily have to get rid of those people. It's just knowing what role in your life they're going to fulfill. It might not be the same one that they've always done before. It might look a little bit differently. Like I still, see some of these people. We might go to the zoo one day, but it's not like we're hanging out for a brainstorm business session. Like it's not gonna, you know what I mean?
Which would set me more on fire than the zoo.
Exactly.
The brainstorming session.
I know, which is so funny because and that, that's fair, because I'm the one who's changed. Like they're not the one who's changed. Like I'm the one who's changed. So, I think remembering that too, like we're the one doing something different and allowing other people that time to catch up, or, that time to like, oh, okay, she's not this role that I've seen her do this, her entire life. She's not doing this. Because that can be a shock for some people especially if you've been keeping it inside the whole time. Like, like I've really wanted to be a photographer, for example, and people had no idea. Well, they need that time to catch up that you've already been thinking about it, this idea of
Yeah,
it.
it's a shock to them that there's a change. I think that that's what I had left I worked for a large corporation and went to go work for a photographer, and everybody was like, you're crazy for doing that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
there were so many different opinions because essentially I gave up my part-time business. I deleted my website. I deleted all of my social media and left a comfortable job where I had vacation time and sick days and holiday and 401k and insurance. Like it was a big change. And I'm like, it's going to be perfectly fine. And 6 months later, it wasn't fine. She texted me and closed the doors. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do? I've deleted all of my business. Like, and I went to work in a restaurant and I was miserable. And I had taken the job because I had been a server at the restaurant years and years prior. And I'm like, it's quick money, serving tables or whatever. And I got offered a management position. They're like, you're not qualified for serving. Like, we're going to give you this management position. And I was going to bed at like 4, and then I was back at work at 8, and my health started declining. I hadn't picked up my camera, all of this stuff. And I'm like, this is not me. And I quit and went full time. And people were like, you literally just deleted everything. So I had to start over. I started as a new business. I had actually been out. Was recovering from facial reconstructive surgery, so I looked different. So it was like, to some people, it was like this whole new girl. Like all of a sudden, one day she was one person, and the next day she was a whole new person, and that came with its own struggles because people want to support you, but they don't necessarily want you to do better or do well. Like they're like, you go girl, but they're secretively like, she's gonna fail, there's no way she can do that. And like it gets back to you, and I'm like, well, watch me.
I'm the same way. Yes. When you said that. So the one girl that I've been talking about a lot for, when we've been talking about this was my best friend. And I signed up for my first half marathon. And her first response was, she's like, you can't do that. I'm like, what? I'm like, girl, you watch me. I'm going to be the fastest, like that's just mentality. Like, use that to fuel your fire, like, and I know you did that too, but like for people listening, like use that, twist it, turn it, reword it, however you got, want to do it. I'm like, which is so funny because I'm training for a marathon right now. And I'm like, I need her to tell me that again because I need a little bit.
Right. Can you just send that to me in a voice message so I can repeat it while I'm running?
Yeah, but show those haters for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy how our minds work. My mom hates bridges. My entire childhood, anytime we went over a bridge, we kind of always picked on her about bridges. And like my dad would always say, like, we don't really believe in it, but like he'd always be like, in another life, you were a bridge maker and died making a bridge or whatever. Like she has a hatred of bridges. And last year, or it was actually in 2020, she contacted me, and like, I love Florida. I have every intention of moving there one day, hopefully sooner than later. But she contacted me one day and she's like, did you know that you can do a 10K over your favorite bridge? And I was like, are you kidding? And she's like, no. And I'm like, how do I sign up? So like we were stalking it, and like the course COVID and all the things, like it was virtual. And then in 2020, I think she must have done it in 2019. She called me. And so in 2020, it was virtual. They didn't do it. I'm like, I'm not signing up. Like the whole point of walking over one of the large, it's one of the top dangerous bridges in America. And we signed up, and I was like, yeah, my mom's doing it with me. And they're like, how old is she? And I was like, well, she'll be 70 when she does it. And like, we already signed up for next year too. Like we're addicted now. But it's so funny how people are like, your mom can't do that. I'm like, I bet on my mom before I bet on myself.
Yeah, seriously.
But having a fear of a bridge and doing a 10K over it at 70 was like, I don't think my mom gives herself enough credit for that because it's pretty badass.
Yeah.
her birthday is actually this week, but it's
Oh,
right. It's a mind over matter thing. Like you can still have a fear of bridges and still go out and do something. And I think like her mentality of always doing what somebody thinks that she can't do is what keeps her going. And I definitely feel like I have that with me. But every bit of entrepreneurs that I ever meet, that is the spark that like lights the whole fire.
yeah.
It's just a
I,
whole
well, and I think that's part of the thread that like unites all of us. Like one of the things that we all have in common is that determination for whatever our passion or whatever our purpose is that really lights us up. And I actually found a journal my mom wrote a couple years ago. And I was right when I was starting my business coaching business and transitioning from network marketing over. And it was a day where I was like, should I do this? Should I not? Like, I was just really in my head about things. And I read this entry and she was talking about me at the Ohio State Fair. Have you ever been to the Ohio State Fair?
yes.
Where they have the fishing where the kids can fish in the
Yep.
wildlife area and catch the fish. So,
Yep.
and I remember doing this as a kid. And so she was describing this and she said, my sister and I went to get this to fish, which I don't even eat fish. No one in my family eats fish but my dad. So like we would do this and we would like give the fish back. Like there was only the purpose of catching the fish, right?
Right.
So she was like, Lindsey, you were so upset because Courtney, who's my younger sister, caught the fish and you didn't catch the fish. So she was like, we had to go back and we went back and back and back all these times. I didn't catch a fish. And she was like, if your determination could have got you a fish, you would have caught a million fish. And I was sitting there and I was like, that's it. Like, that's my, that's kind of like my sweet sauce is that determination. Like, I might not always be the most skilled. Clearly at fishing, I was not, I might like, there are things in my life that like, I'm not the best at, but like, I will work to get there. I will like do what I have to do for the things that like light me up or I'm passionate about. And I think that's one of the things that I have seen as a common thread around so many entrepreneurs, women in business, no matter what, what it is like that determination, like I will make this work. Like I don't know if HE double hockey
No, you
stick.
can say it. You're
Okay.
good.
I was like, oh, I didn't ask that time. Like come hell or high water, like, we're getting it done. And just like that reminder and that mindset, I was like, yes, thank you, mom. I like shut the journal. I'm like, okay, I'm going. Thank you for that reminder, But yeah, that determination, whether you're 70 walking across the bridge that is terrifying you, or you're pressing live on your Facebook to do a Facebook Live, like whatever it is that you need to get done, let's get it done.
Yeah, it's determination for sure. Like I had a couple years ago, I did a survivor shoot where I photographed a bunch of people that had invisible illnesses, and I photographed myself with it because I had stage 4 endometriosis, and we all had a word that we got to hold up for the magazine that I was doing, and mine was determined. I'd asked all my friends, like, what word do you describe me? And I think people don't realize they can see a business and they're like, oh, they're successful, but every business has failed over and over and over and over again, so much that we can't write down how many times we failed. But it's that determination that keeps us going. And same way with marathon. Like the first time you ran wasn't a marathon. Like you had to go to fail. Like you're okay, well, I got to a mile. Tomorrow, 2 miles, 6 miles, 7 miles, 8 miles. Like you keep going. And I don't think people realize like that's a failure. It's not a bad word. Like I think people, obviously there's failures where people lose millions of dollars and a whole different things, but like there's good and bad with it. And I think that people are so afraid of failure that they don't ever try and they don't get past that, and having the determination keeps us going to do that. Because like I haven't ever seen you run, but I know that you're gonna run that marathon. Like I have no doubt about it. Like
whether my feet fall off, which they very well might.
Right. And that's essentially like starting a business is the same concept. And I think having all of the people that I've talked to that started businesses during the pandemic too, like that is some massive determination. Like you're starting a business in a pandemic. you're going to get through it. Like you
Yeah.
just have to keep pushing through. Um, what do you think is like the best reward that you do in your business for people?
Ooh, that's so hard. Um, I think the biggest reward is when like I'm on a call with them, or in my membership every week we have a post where people can drop their wins, and I just love reading them, where things that used to be so difficult for people or that they used to get in their mind about is now a daily part of their routine, or it's coming really naturally. Or I had a coaching call with a client last week, and we got about halfway through our time, and she's like, I really don't feel like there's anything else I need coached on, because I have implemented everything that you said the past few weeks, and I feel so much better. I feel so much more aligned. And so it's just kind of like that, taking that relief, or I guess giving people that relief, and making their business a little bit easier for them, and helping it really fit into their life, where business is part of your lifestyle. Your lifestyle isn't your business. Like your whole life isn't your business. Because, as working women, we can get so like engulfed in what we're doing. We're so, like I keep saying, passionate, but we're passionate about what we do, and we really want to make it work. And a lot of times I see people, myself included, where when we're doing this, then okay, we're lacking sleep. We're not eating the right things. We're not taking us time, and other things get pushed to the back burner. And I really love helping people find that balance so that they just feel really, really good about it, because business, I think, can be fun. It doesn't have to be overwhelming all the time. And really finding that, helping people find that for themselves, because it looks different for everyone. Like what I think of as a fulfilling business that's enjoyable to me is going to be completely different than what yours is. So it's not like a one size fits all, which I think is really cool about business in general.
I think too, something that I notice that I do is if I'm not constantly busy, I don't feel like I'm being productive or useful,
Yeah.
which I'm pretty sure is a trauma response.
You
Have to go back to
can work on that.
Lee's podcast, but I
Yeah.
notice it with a couple of my friends that are photographers too. There's one that comes to mind as she's listening to my podcast. She's been on it, but she doesn't sleep and she's constantly going. And she's like, this is how I function. I'm the best self. And I'm like, it's going to catch up to you. Like, you need to rest.
Yep.
And me noticing that in hers is making me slow down, because I'm like, I don't want to be that way. Like, I want to go do fun things. I have another friend that is a photographer. She's also been on a podcast. I think you know her too. And Christine Photos, and her and I have been planning like fun things to do and next year. Like, we're already thinking ahead. I'm like, we should do that. We should do that, because it's important to have friendships in your business as well as like a business bestie, like you can work together, but we also have to work or on doing things that aren't work, because we get so caught up in working all the time that we forget to live.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point of starting a business was
Yep.
to have a better life.
Right. And I don't want to get to that point, like, especially seeing my mom pass away, like, and I still to this day will have my days where I'm like, she was so robbed. She passed away when she was 57. And I'm like, that's only 20 years older than I am right now. And I'm like, I don't want to get to that point where I'm like, I didn't take the time to be with the people that I love. I spent it on the internet, or I did other things. So same thing for me. Like, I booked trips to Disney World, and people judge me for that. I don't care. I freaking love Disney World. It's a fun place to be,
If you love it, then you do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I always like to have something on my calendar that I'm like looking forward to that is not necessarily work related. Now, some of it, is business, like it'll be a conference or a retreat or something I'm really excited about, which I think you need to do those things too. But yeah, I'm all about planning, planning in that time. And that's what I help my clients with sometimes too, is like, no, you need to plan this in, because if you don't plan it in, it's not going to happen. Even if that's just like a date night or whatever, like plan it in just like you do your business time, so that you're not overworking yourself. You don't have to be working your business while you're watching a movie. You're allowed to have that, that joy or that downtime. And I've done that with the second network marketing company I was in was a clothing company. I tell you what, I've never worked so hard in my life because you have to not only like, I had to do live sales, I had to photograph all this stuff, put it up there. But then when people bought it, I had to package it all. I slept like 4 hours a night.
Yeah.
And I slowly watched like the weight come on, and I was sick all the time. And I'm like, and I didn't, it was just so like, what, but I was succeeding. And my love language is recognition. So I was like, I'm hitting the next rake. I'm hitting this next goal. I'm getting this huge paycheck. I'm like, dude, it's not worth it. At the end of the day, I'm like, I can't, like, for my own mental and physical health, like I've reached that burnout point. And I'm like, it's not good for anyone involved.
Right. That's what I started. While we're recording this, it's December, but it'll be airing in January. But I started working on, or February. I started working on my calendar for 2023. And like my studio is closed on Sundays and Saturdays. And every once in a while I'll do something on a Saturday, especially the end of the year when people have already used up all of their time off at their work and stuff that they can't come in. And I have a day once a month that I block off and write it's self-care. And I'm like, you need to put permanent marker on this block if you need to,
Yes.
so that you can't schedule, because I started off last year doing really well with it. And then things came up and like reschedules and just different plans. And then I started getting back into it in the fall. And I'm like, why did you let that slip? Because those were the days I looked forward to, when it was like, this is a decompression day where I don't need to do any appointments for anybody else. And that includes my friends, unless I want to. Like, this is a me day where I can go to the shooting range, or I can go to the chiropractor, or I can just go walk around the mall, like or just sit in bed and watch Netflix if I choose to. And I think that that's something that a lot of business owners are terrified of doing, because I've been full-time, I don't even know now, like 8 years. And I never took days off ever. And then when I started doing Sundays, where I was like, I don't do Sundays, it felt so good. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to add in Mondays. And it, like, I would like to have a 4-day work week eventually. Because that's what we do this for. Like, I don't want to wait until I'm 60 to have to retire. And as you said, you learned it with your mom. Like, I've almost died twice. I've had a lot of health issues. And that's the one thing I've learned is tomorrow can be taken from us. And we got so busy trying to live for the future that we forgot to live in the present.
Yeah. Well, and that mentality too went into my day job, which you kind of talked about with your restaurant, and that appreciation is, I realized that because you were so upset when you quit on a Saturday because you felt really bad for your boss and all these people, but I'm sure they replaced you, right?
Absolutely.
They
probably cursed me to high heaven in the process, but I was replaced.
And I'm like, why are we slaving and feeling so bad about, quitting these things that are not necessarily serving us, when they're going to find someone else? Like, if I leave my job, they'll find another Spanish teacher, it's not. And I think, I don't know if it's as women, but we feel like we owe these, we owe people things. And a lot of times we don't, which freeing that up. And again, I'm sure there's probably trauma attached to that whenever for sure.
Contact Lee.
Another plug. But we gotta like give ourselves that freedom that like we are irreplaceable at our workplace. So like stop busting your ass to do all this stuff when you're almost just a number sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's what, like, as a photographer, I know like other people can have their photos taken by other people if I didn't have my business, but they couldn't have my eyes. They couldn't have my editing style. Like, there is nobody that can do what I do like I do it. And I think a lot of times people forget that. And like, you as a teacher, same concept, like, you're teaching people, but it doesn't mean like the next teacher that comes in after you is going to teach the same way you do, or that students can learn the same way. I got a mentor in 2015 that just changed my entire business, and she's incredible. Sue Bryce, phenomenal photographer, world renowned photographer. And I couldn't get enough of her learning. Like I was like, I'm like, okay, this is phenomenal. Like every day I was like, what else can I learn from her? And people in my family were like, you hated school and like you're learning from this person. And I feel like I could just observe, like she could teach me how to like do an autopsy on a person, and I'd be like, all right, let's go.
All
Like,
in.
yeah. And I think like people don't realize that is like you're only what you're good at. Like, yeah, somebody can like your job can be replaced, but you need to like hone in on those things that you're good at, because those are your talents and nobody else can be you. And that is essentially like if you're a business, only you have that business.
That's what sets you apart. Like that's your part of your brand. I think you get to really pull out and show people, which can be really hard for us too, is to like toot our own horn, so to speak, or, you know, talk about yourself in those sorts of ways. But once we allow that vulnerability to open up and show people like, this is what makes me in my photography. This is what makes me in my business coaching. No one else is going to get this from me because I have this skill, you know what I mean? And, I mean, same thing with my network marketing audience, because I have a large network marketing audience. And I'm like, yes, you all are selling the same product. So that's why that personal branding aspect, what sets you apart, is so important. Really being able to figure that out. And some people can have a hard time figuring that out because we get so into the like, well, I'm not special. Why would people work with me? You know, that comparison trap too, when you see other people selling your same thing and they're killing it, and then you start to slowly try to be like them, like remembering to put the brakes on and go back to like, okay, what makes me? Like, what do I have? What are my skills? What experiences do I have that I bring to the table that other person doesn't have? Can be a really important reminder for people going forward, especially people who like to compare, which I think is a lot of us.
Oh, 100%. There was a guy that I heard on a video yesterday that said, if you don't have people that don't like you, you're not being authentic. And he said essentially like you're going to piss people off. And if you're not, then you're like, he's like, you can't have everybody like you. And it was just listening to everything he said, and I wish I could quote who it was. I apologize. Like I don't have references for it, but it's so true. Like when I first started doing photography, I was offering anything. Like somebody's like, I need a photographer. And I'm like, oh, what do you need? They're like, if they wanted me to photograph an apple, I would be like, yeah, I can do that. If I wanted
apple as well.
Yeah, like let's do anything and everything. And like I don't necessarily, I've talked about it before, like I don't necessarily believe in niching down. I did that in 2019, and I think it was the worst business decision I could have done for my studio and for myself, just because it took away from things that brought me joy and brought other people joy. And it also hurt my social media because I was just focusing on boudoir, which got me flagged and censored. And I've been trying to climb out of that hole. But I got into photography because I had so much fun with my senior photos that I wanted to give that to everybody else. And I stopped doing senior photos because I was doing boudoir. And so now like I've set that, and like it brought me so much joy back. But I still look back on it when I thought like I was trying to do everything and all the things. It was because I was trying to have everybody like me. And I was like, I got to be the best photographer at everything, but I didn't. I just needed to do the things that I loved. And it feels so good to be like, no, I don't do weddings. Sorry, but I can recommend these people to you. And it's boundaries. It's going back to that boundaries topic. Like you can't have everybody like you, and you do have to set yourself apart. Like there are people that I know that don't like me, and I don't really care. They can't even tell you why they don't like me. They're just like, I don't know. You just do everything and you make it look easy. And I'm like, well, good luck. Because it's not. Yeah.
Well, and you want to do the things that you're good at, that you really love doing, because then you're going to get awesome results for your clients, right? Rather than like, okay, I've watched some trainings on this and I can help you a little bit with that, but I've never actually successfully done it myself. Like, I'll just tell my clients, like, okay, I'm not a live video expert, but I can recommend you to someone who is. Like, I can give you the basics of it. Do I go live every day? Like, I probably should. No, like, I don't do that. Like, that's not how
Yeah.
I've had to run my business. I can give you what I can help you with, but that's not my forte. Like, I'm gonna help you with the things that I can help you with, and then I'll refer out, someone else who that might bring them joy to do that. But this is what I like doing.
Yeah. We
And being
can't copy
okay.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and being okay with that, because not only wanting everyone to like you, but I think too, especially when we're starting out, like, we want that money. So we're like, oh, someone's offering to pay me for this. Yeah, I can do that. And you might be able to do it pretty well, but is that what you want to be known for? Is that what like you said, brings you joy, brings you fulfillment? Or are you going to leave that after, a 3 hour, 4 hour, whatever hour day and be like drained, and
Yeah.
then not have the energy for you or for your other client who is actually the thing that you enjoy doing?
Yeah. There was like definitely a shift in the industry I saw in 2020 that people were leaving different genres, especially wedding, because their people weren't getting married. And they were like, oh, we're jumping ship and we're going to go to boudoir. There's money in boudoir. And like, there's money in anything that you do if you price yourself right. And it was so funny because I was like, my biggest sale that I've ever had was a family session.
Wow.
Like, so
Yeah.
yeah, like you can make money doing anything as long as you're pricing yourself as a business and you're enjoying what you're doing. Um, but it's just weird how people run towards the money. And like I've been guilty of it because rent, like
Oh,
I
yeah.
have a studio I have to pay for, and I think it's funny because people don't. I don't know the what it is, but I feel like people don't realize that I have to pay for my studio.
People don't realize a lot of things when it comes to
They
yeah.
really don't.
Yeah.
They'll be like, wow, you're so expensive. And I'm like, you're literally staying in my studio that's 1,250 square feet. Like, this isn't free.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think
You're,
it's expensive? Let's think about this.
yeah, you're on a blue velvet couch, like with a camera that was more than a car. Like, I mean, not a lot of
Oh,
cars, like a used car, but
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
think people just don't put it in perspective. And so we do have a tendency to like focus on the money and to chase it because we have to make up for it. But I started like setting things to the side. If I wanted to do something out of my own heart to help somebody out, then I would do it that way, but not just take it because it was money, because it's just going to suck up the energy you need for the
Yeah.
people that are providing you money.
100%. And um I ran into that a lot with saying yes to things at school, not so much with my business, but with school. And, it's like working a basketball game, which I'm doing it this Friday. Like, here I am talking about this. I'm doing it on Friday because they asked me to work it. And it's like 6 hours at this game. And I think I make like $40. And I'm like thinking about it. And I do it, because I like the kids. I like giving some time back. But I'm like, I'm not doing this all season because I could be spending that 6 hours, one, on watching some Netflix and recharging after a long week, right? But I could be spending it on my own business and, pouring into my current clients or future clients and be making so much more money. And that's another important thing that, especially when starting out, but it's a good reminder no matter where you're at in your business, is like, okay, what's your hourly worth? And are you actually doing the things that should be taking up that time versus wasting it with something else?
Yeah.
Or not necessarily wasting all the time, but spending it doing something else where you're like, ooh, I should probably not do that.
I
Especially if I'm,
actually just for the first time this week outsourced two things to somebody I didn't know. And I
yeah.
got on Fiverr and I was like, I can do this. It's gonna be okay. And it has been. And I'm like, I'm gonna get addicted to this because it
Yeah.
felt good. And like
Yeah.
I've had people help me. Like I gotta give a shout out to my friend. He was in the military and he got out and he came back to Ohio, and he's been out of Ohio for 20 years. He literally grew up next to me. Like I've known him for 33 years, and he's in that transition period, like no job or whatever. And like I needed a lot of help. I broke my computer on accident and there was a lot of things going on. And I got up and I was like praying about it. And I was like, God, I don't know what I'm going to do today. Like I just feel like I'm drowning. And I'm like, I don't even know how to ask for help because some of the things that I needed, I couldn't outsource to somebody else. Like they had to physically come into my studio to help. And
Yeah.
I just was like, his name popped into my head. I'm like, I'm not going to ask him. And then I was like brushing my teeth and I'm like, you really want me to ask him, don't you? So I texted him. I was like, the worst he can say is no. And I was like, I know this is like way below your pay grade because it was just like checking boxes on one of my websites that I needed. And he was like, yeah, I can come. I'll be there at 1. And he brought me lunch. Like it was so nice and he was
Aw.
so helpful. And like he sat here and talked to
Aw.
me all day and like we caught up and it was just funny. Like people want to help, but I've never asked for help. And then when I did, I'm like, that didn't hurt as bad as I thought it was gonna hurt. And so
Yeah.
now I'm like,
I
what else can I outsource? And I'm hoping like in 2023, I hire out more things to help because it's going to help me be a better person and me take back that and have that productivity that I know that you promote to people. You try to
Well,
tell people.
yep. And and it's so interesting with outsourcing because I think a lot of times we think it has to be business stuff. But like one of the very first things I outsourced was getting my lawn mowed. Like I'm not doing it. First of all, I don't even own a lawnmower and it's a huge yard. And for the $80 a week or 85, I think it is now because gas went up, which I'm like, it's okay. $85 a week that I pay, like that's 4 hours that would take me as one person where they bring out a whole crew. Then I'm like, I can be working on my business or again, self-care time or whatever. It's just like one thing off my plate that it's one less decision, like it's happening or like our meals getting delivered or anything like that can like, I almost feel like the one less decision for me is even better than like the saving time, although the saving time does help a lot too. But I actually messaged someone today about my social media management because I want to start outsourcing that because that's another thing. I'm like, if I can start streamlining that, get someone who their zone of genius is marketing, and I know like I could do it, but it doesn't bring me joy. Like it is not not my forte. So I have a meeting with her next week and I am fingers crossed hoping that it goes really well. And that's one more thing that hopefully starting in 2023 that I can also outsource because I'm like, it feels like you said, really good to know that that is done, checked off, and you can spend that time, doing something else that is your zone of genius, which I'm really excited about that.
Well, plus too, like it makes the world go round. I feel like everybody has different skills. It's just like a bakery. Like if you want a good cake, yeah, sure, you can make it yourself. But if you go to that bakery on the corner, they might have something that, is way better. And that brings them joy and they like to service their customers and it just keeps everything going and makes it more efficient. It's taken me a long time to realize that myself though, but I'm sure the person that mows your yard loves doing it.
Yeah. And he does it, he does it for everyone. And he's so efficient at it. Like I said, he'll go out there and they'll be done like in less than an hour. And when we first bought this place and we were remodeling it, we did mow it. My dad would bring his lawnmower up in his truck. It literally would take like 4 or 5 hours. And like, I hated every minute of it. And so I'm like, these guys are out there with their like fancy zero turn
Yeah.
mower. You know what I mean? Like it's a whole different ball game for them. And they're almost gone by the time I go out to pay them. Like when I see them pull down the driveway and I'm like, it's a whole different,
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole different experience. Just like for us, I'm sure someone would say that about photography too. Like, I don't know how to take pictures, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, this is my zone of genius. Here I go, done it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that energy and being in alignment with stuff too. So yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I do personal branding sessions too. And I'm like, a cell phone can take a picture and your cell phone's probably $1,000, 800, like, I don't know what cell phones are now. And my camera is like 3 or 4,000, the lenses and everything. I can do photos either way, but it's the knowledge you get with me. And I think that like, it's just like mowing your yard. Those people know exactly what the length of the blade needs to be so that you don't go down to the soil, and they know if you have weeds that you need to have treated, and they just know things differently than what you would normally see in your own home. and I'm sure you see that with businesses, like having somebody look out on the outside and go, okay, you are failing here, you're excelling here. I feel like I say failure, but a lot of people cringe at that, but like I normalize it. But
Yeah.
like there's just different things that people are better at. And I'm getting to the point too where I see it so many times, like you can do it, doesn't mean you should do it. Hire somebody else to do it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And it's again such a good reminder because I had a VA when was it? 2020, 2021. And I don't know what happened. Like she stopped doing it. And then I just never found another one who we really meshed really well. So I'm like, I'll just do it myself. And then I have been, and I've realized it. And that's where the self-awareness piece I think is so big for us as entrepreneurs, is like just realizing, like, being able to tell ourselves, like, okay, this actually isn't working, Lindsey. Like, you need to get your ish together. And just looking back on my social content, like, I know what to post. I tell other people what to post. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it. And I'm like, it's just like, for me, so much easier and honestly better when I find someone who really meshes with me and understands my business and my mission and what I want to put out there, and let them do it because they love doing it. They're up on trends. And I'm like, that's not what I want to spend my time doing. Like, it's just not. And being aware, like, okay, if I really want my business to grow a little bit quicker, my marketing needs to step it up. And I'm not the person who is qualified to do that, but Kristen might be. So we're going to chat with her,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and just knowing those investments, like being willing to make those investments, because that's another thing that I know has held me back in the past. 9 times out of 10, what you get out of them is so much higher than what you actually pay for them.
Yeah, and I think with that you get more time and income too, because if they're being productive and posting, it's going to get you more views, which is going to bring you in more customers and clients, and it just makes it all better.
Yeah,
in the bigger picture.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Well, we've talked about a lot of things today. Was there anything else that we haven't talked about that you were wanting to talk about today?
Gosh, I don't even know. No, I feel like we've covered a ton of things. I think the biggest thing is, just do it. Just do that. I don't think that anything has been put on your heart without a reason. And so whether that is pursuing your photography, even if you make mistakes by deleting your account and you wish you wouldn't have deleted it, that, you know what I mean? Like, all of it is part of your journey. And I think being able to realize that, even those times where, and I'm with you, like, some things are just failures, like they just are, but they're there for a reason. And that's one thing my mom always said was, everything happens for a reason. And sometimes it can be really, 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 really hard to find that reason. But if you're able to find it and figure out how it fits into your story, I think it can be a really beautiful thing, whether you are an entrepreneur or not. And just allowing yourself to be in that journey.
Did you have to make note that is what I have tattooed on my right arm?
Nuh-uh. Oh my gosh.
Everything happens for a reason. Yeah, I can't really. Let's see if I can do it this way. Of course it's backwards, but yeah, I mean, it's backwards because of the camera. I got it on 1111. I got it on January 1st, 2011. I had been in a really bad car accident in October of 2010. I was moving away from my hometown. Like, it wasn't far. Like, I left one city, went to another, like 20 minutes away, but it was the first time I had kind of just spread my wings and was doing my own thing. And it was a hit and run. It ended up in 3 counties away in a high-speed chase. They caught the guy, but I laid on a board for 9 hours thinking I was never going to walk again. And it was just a very, like, you see in the movies when they're like, press your feet on my hands. And I was like, I am. And like, the doctors are all like, no, you're not. Try again. Like, it was all very scary. And luckily I did. Like, I had just my nerves got damaged, and like the brain signals weren't firing. But he spent 2 years in jail, and I like obviously was angry about it, and like it was moving day, and it was just a crazy thing. I actually didn't include it in my first book, but I might tell the story in my second. But I do talk about everything happens for a reason, because I got it on my right arm because it's not always right, but it happens for a reason. And
Yeah.
that like gave me a momentum to find better with my life. And I was like, if I could literally have a split second where somebody else decides to drive erratically and intoxicated and could change my entire life, like I want to give it my all.
Yeah.
So it motivated me. My determination came out. And I think that that is one of the things that people have to learn on their own sometimes. Like I can write it in a book, they can read it and they can listen to it on a podcast. But I hear a lot of times people like, they're like, I just need this. And I've said it myself, but you have to look within yourself and pay attention to what you said. Like it's put in your heart for a reason, and to run with it. And you're not going to be fulfilled until you do. And you're only going to regret not doing it when you're older.
100%. I couldn't say any of that better. Your story like brought tears to my eyes, and I'm just like,
no crying.
I just had like chills when you were saying that. Just like, yeah, I mean, I shared about my mom passing away, and I was angry, and I still have my days where I am very angry, about that. And then I try to think of all the reasons, and I'm like, well, I wouldn't have taken the Spanish job that I'm at had, I not been kind of quote unquote forced to stay close to home, and that could have caused that. And like, I think about the people that I've met and so, yeah, finding that, I know, and it's not always a silver lining, but, finding those pieces of that reason can really help, kind of fill in those holes, I guess, depending on what the situation is. But that's so crazy that you have that tattooed on your arm. And I said that, like, I can't get over that.
I was like, do I say something? I'm like, no, you say something for sure.
Yeah. 100%.
It's been brought up on my other podcast. So like, I feel like I know that I'm on the right path. Like whoever's listening, if I only have one listener that listens to every podcast, I hope you're getting the message because it keeps getting brought up and like just different.
It's your tagline.
Yeah, it's really funny because like obviously we get tattoos when we want them at different points in life. And like I'm a graphic designer, so I picked it, like that's what I have my degree in or whatever. I don't do that now for a living. Just clarify, please don't ask me to design your logos. I picked the font because I liked it and it was very scriptic. But it's been 10 years since I got it. I got Love Never Fails on this arm.
Oh,
to match. So they're based, like this is based off of Ecclesiastes 3, a time to weep, a time to cry, like all of that, and it happens for a reason. But it doesn't look like it was 10 years ago. And I'm like, the fonts have changed, but I don't show them off as much either. Like I get older. I feel like when you're younger, you're like, look at all my tattoos, and now people just get tattoos. Like we're grown adults with grown money. We can just spend it. When we're younger, we're like, hey, I got a tattoo. Like,
yeah,
it definitely changes a bit, but I still get excited. Like, oh, let's go do that or whatever. Like more ink, but I have a lot of ink. People don't even know I have it. Like I just hide it in little places.
Yeah. I didn't know the places.
Yeah, I have one behind my ear, and I think that always throws people off. They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. That's fun. Yeah, I feel like anybody that's listening, if you have some type of desire to start a business, there are people out there that are cheering you on, and just do it for sure.
Yeah, find your community, love them, support them just like they support you. And I firmly believe that good energy comes back. Like what you put out there, you'll get back. It might take a while, but you'll find them. You'll get it back for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that comes back within 24 hours. So give yourself time.
Yeah, it's not Amazon Prime.
Right. There's definitely
there's a shipping lag.
Yes. It got lost in translation somewhere. It's a message in a bottle thrown in the ocean. There will be a hurricane that comes and delivers it right back. Just wait. I assure you. Yes. Well, it's been awesome having you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for your time. And hopefully your VA works out for you, and we'll have to have you back on a future podcast to talk about all the other things that you do. And it's been really fun today. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And how can people find you and follow you?
I am at Lindsey Dollinger in all the places. So LINDSAY, DOLLINGER. My website's lindseydollinger.com, and my podcast is the Purpose and Pixie Dust podcast. So I'd love to connect.
Awesome. I'll make sure all of your links are in the show notes so people can just click and follow. So thank you, Lindsey.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Appreciate it.
Well, that's all we have for today's podcast. We thank you so much for joining, and I hope that you have a fantastic day, and we will catch you next time with the Joss and Crowd